It didn't start with missiles. It didn't start with sanctions. It started with mistrust, the kind that builds slowly, then hardens for generations. The relationship between Iran and the United States is one of the most complicated rivalries in modern history. Once allies, now adversaries. And the road between those two realities is filled with revolutions, covert operations, economic pressure, and moments where the world held its breath. This is the story of how two nations moved from partnership to permanent tension. Believe it or not, the US and Iran weren't always enemies. Back in the mid-20th century, Iran was ruled by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, a monarch backed strongly by the United States. Washington saw Iran as a key ally in the Middle East, a buffer against Soviet influence during the Cold War. Billions of dollars in military aid flowed in. American companies invested heavily. Western culture spread in Iranian cities. But here's the thing. Many Iranians felt left out of that progress. Wealth stayed near the top. Political opposition was crushed by the Shah's secret police. To a lot of people, it didn't feel like partnership. It felt like foreign-backed control. That resentment didn't disappear. It grew. Then came 1979. Everything changed. Mass protests exploded across Iran. The Shah fled. And a religious leader, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, returned from exile to lead what became the Islamic Revolution. The new government rejected Western influence and accused the US of propping up a dictator. When America allowed the exiled Shah to enter the country for medical treatment, anger in Iran boiled over. Students stormed the US embassy in Tehran. 52 American diplomats were taken hostage. They were held for 444 days. That crisis shattered relations. Diplomatic ties were cut. Sanctions began. And the hostility that still defines this relationship today took root. The decades that followed weren't marked by direct war, but by constant friction. The US accused Iran of supporting militant groups across the Middle East. Iran accused America of trying to isolate and weaken it through sanctions and regional pressure. There were covert operations, cyber attacks, naval confrontations in the Persian Gulf, each side testing limits without crossing into full-scale war. Sanctions became one of Washington's main tools. These measures targeted Iran's economy, especially its oil exports. The goal? Pressure the government to change its policies. But sanctions also hurt everyday people. Prices rose. Medicine became harder to find. And ordinary Iranians often felt like they were paying the price for decisions made far above their heads. Then came the nuclear issue, the biggest flashpoint of the 21st century between the two. Iran insisted its nuclear program was for peaceful energy. The US and its allies feared Iran was moving toward building a nuclear weapon. Tensions escalated. More sanctions. More threats. More fear that one misstep could spark a war no one could control. In 2015, something surprising happened. After years of negotiations, Iran and world powers signed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the nuclear deal. Iran agreed to limit its nuclear program and allow inspections. In return, some sanctions were lifted. For a moment, it looked like the temperature might finally cool. But it didn't last. In 2018, the United States withdrew from the nuclear deal and reimposed heavy sanctions. Iran responded by stepping back from its commitments under the agreement. The cycle of pressure and retaliation started again. Oil tankers were attacked. Military drones were shot down. Bases housing US troops in Iraq were targeted by Iranian-linked forces. Then, in 2020, the world watched one of the most dramatic moments yet. A US drone strike killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, one of the most powerful military figures in Iran. Iran retaliated with missile strikes on bases hosting American troops. For days, people everywhere wondered, is this the start of a war? It wasn't. But it was close. Closer than many realized. So why hasn't this conflict been resolved? Part of it is ideology. Iran's leadership built its identity around resisting American influence. Meanwhile, US leaders often see Iran as a destabilizing force in the region. Part of it is history. Decades of mistrust don't disappear with one agreement. And part of it is politics, on both sides. Leaders face internal pressure not to look weak. Compromise can be framed as surrender. The result? A relationship stuck in a loop. Pressure, response, escalation, pause, then repeat. But here's something worth remembering. Despite the politics, despite the rhetoric, the people of both countries aren't natural enemies. Iranian and American citizens have shared culture, science, art, and history for generations. Many still hope for a future that looks different from the past. The story of Iran and the United States isn't over. Not even close. And whether it moves toward more conflict or cautious cooperation depends on decisions still being made today. History shows how things fell apart. The future depends on whether leaders can imagine something better.